mighty fine bass playing there, Jeff.
Hey, thanks, man. You know, I learned from the best. A couple of weeks ago, hold on, we got to chat with two neighbors that are bass players, or bass players that are neighbors. Two of LA's finest and the world's finest. Mike Valerio and John Button. You're going to learn a lot about these neighbors from Eagle Rock, California, here on Sage and Sound Advice. Neighbors, introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Mike.
Hi, I'm John. Nice to meet you. Where do you live?
On Escarpment Drive.
Oh, okay, shit.
Now, do you ever get each other's union dues or any mail that you're not supposed to?
I don't ever take his paycheck.
Yeah, that hasn't happened. But you have gotten my international musician.
Yeah, I put that in the trash bag.
Yeah. Thank you. It saved me a trip.
Well, first of all, when Mike, you lived here before John. When you found out a bass player was going to move next door, what was your...
Oh, I'm so sorry. You have to understand, I moved into my house as a rental, I want to say about 2003. And shortly after I moved in, a sound design guy for movies named Derek Vanderhorst moved into this house. He redid just about everything in the house.
Thankfully.
Preparing it for John, obviously.
Right.
And but Derek was great, and Derek, hey man, can I borrow a microphone stand? I got to do a little Foley thing over here. And hey, let me show you some Pro Tools shortcuts. It was awesome.
Wow.
Occasionally you'd hear things like the noise of, a dump truck being dropped off a bridge, and what the hell was that? And then you'd hear it again, and then you'd hear it again. It's like, it's Derek, he's working. Wow. It wasn't a real dump truck. That was cool. He never complained about it. He said, hey, am I bothering you with my noise? What noise? And he said, yeah, right. Am I bothering you? He said, I never hear you. Which is awesome, because I think as bass players, we've all lived in an apartment at one point or another where the low frequencies travel, and you get that, I'm trying to read my Choose Your Own Adventure books over here. Can you not do that?
Yeah.
My favorite quote was the first apartment I lived in, the second apartment. It was he was asking my roommate, does someone in your apartment play the tuba? And he said, well, no, he plays the bass. He goes, oh, that's the worst. That's the worst. So that goes in the personal quote book.
Yes.
Yeah.
The tuba.
That's the worst.
When you were at New World Symphony, you lived at the Colony, right? It was the hotel?
No, it was the Plymouth and the Ansonia. The Plymouth
Those
Hotel.
were the apartments.
Yeah, exactly.
And now there were legendary stories about you holding court late at night playing for people there.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
New World Symphony, the 3 years I spent there were the most important 3 years of my life, musically and otherwise.
Why?
It's like, well, I learned I didn't want to play in an orchestra.
Good thing you stopped doing that.
Well, thanks. Yeah, that worked well. That was very successful in the life planning chapter of my life. Do not, it's an orchestra. Oh, look, I'm in an orchestra.
You didn't want to be in a symphony, like day in, day out, same.
I knew that I couldn't exclusively survive mentally as a straight orchestral musician. And because when I was down there, I was doing there were weeks where I was doing twice as much work on the outside. Playing Latin gigs and jazz gigs and electric gigs, and doing the jazz jam down at Tobacco Road
Wednesday night
with Brendan Buckley.
What was
Mark Crummage? Mark Crummage, the flute player.
Oh, his one lick was.
Yes.
That's how you get through.
The band was always awesome.
Great.
It's like
Brendan did it. Huh?
Brendan did it for a
I
while.
did it with a German guy. I don't remember his name.
The German guy, I don't remember.
He was fine, but
Archie Pena was there before him.
Oh yeah, Archie was great.
And Archie was slamming.
You do?
Yeah, he did the security tour.
He did.
Yes. And Jim Gager.
I love Gager.
Yeah. Right. He was usually
Tobacco Road was open until 5 in the morning.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was stupid hours.
Yeah. And so, what made you think of that as the apartment? So you would not get complaints from your fellow symphony members.
Oh no, we got complaints. Well,
you did.
I had a drum set down there too.
So all the symphony would stay in this apartment building.
Yeah, the two apartments next door to each other, separated by a courtyard with a pool.
And it was young musicians usually in between university
and their first job. Yeah, this was like the stepping stone job.
And it's still there.
It's still there. I'm in fact going back there next week to play a piece of Michael's with the orchestra that they're then going to take to Carnegie Hall. And I'm playing electric bass. For the second time in Carnegie Hall, I'm playing the electric bass, which is a major coup.
Yeah.
I just think that's... I'm okay with that.
So cool.
But getting back to the New World thing, yes, from minute one, my friend Ted Adkatz tells the story. Ted used to be the principal percussionist in the Chicago Symphony. He's out here now, and he's teaching at Colburn and then, Cal State Long Beach, and he teaches at the Lynn Conservatory in Florida, in Boca Raton area. He tells the story. He was down there subbing. This was my first year there, and they were at the Governor Hotel, where they gave us 2-for-1 drinks. So of course, half the orchestra, at least, was always at the Gov, getting their drink on. And Jesse was like, "All right, come on, we gotta go." It was after a con. We gotta go see the Valerio show. Ted's like, "What? We just got? No, I don't know what's the Valerio show?" He said, "My Valerio plays the bass. You're gonna love these." "Oh, no, I'm staying here. You can go see the fucking Valerio show or whatever the fuck you want."
Right.
No, we gotta go see the Valerio. Okay, so he comes over and I'm playing like just some of the stuff I was working on, like the Bach B flat piano prelude. Working that out on the bass, little tapping thing, some other things, a thing that I sang, that kind of.
Right.
People would just show up and ask me to play shit for them. That might have been the most important part of the whole experience down there. As great as everything else was, just having the experience of people wanting to hear me play the electric bass for no other reason except to hear me play it.
And this was in your apartment?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we'd get the, "Hey, Mike, it's after 11 o'clock.
Right.
Time to sleep or do some or go somewhere else other than here."
Were there people that held court at North Texas where you went to school? It seemed like the drummers were always the superstars at North Texas. Is that not
True.
right?
Yeah. I think there was some holding court. I don't remember myself.
Who were you there with? Like who were the notables?
Keith Carlock was my roommate. So the drummers have like a practice room that's about the size of a drum set.
Right.
And I used to squeeze my amp into Keith's practice room, and we'd be in there, we'd jam in his practice room, which was fun. Who else was I there with? Blair Cinta, Luke Adams, Henry Hay.
Yeah.
I'm probably forgetting a million other people. There are a lot of guys that are doing big country tours out of Nashville that went to North Texas with me. I left 1 credit short of graduating. I stayed in Texas, stayed in Denton, where University of North Texas is. I stayed there for a year because I had a gig with a cover band.
Not Joe McBride yet, or not?
No, not yet.
Right.
No, it was like a wedding band, cover band, but it paid well, and I had an apartment that was $90 a month. So I hung there for a year playing weddings, making pretty good money, so I could save up enough money to move out here.
You wanted to come here versus Nashville or New York?
Yeah.
In '94, you think?
Yeah.
What made you decide on this city?
I think New York felt more like a place for jazz musicians to go, which I am not.
You said that to me right away when you came here because we were doing that crappy gig in North Hollywood and you came and subbed on it twice and then the third time I think I called you and said, "Yeah, I'm not a jazz guy." Well, you've been fooling us. You could be, you just did not want to be. You're a great
Thank you. I suppose that's true. But yeah, I wanted to do, do some studio sessions and be on tour with pop musicians. And the first thing I did was a girl that went by just her first name, Rebecca. And she was on Elektra, and they were pushing her really big, and she just never took off. Abe Laborio Jr. And Mike Elizondo played on her record. We opened for a bunch of big artists, and it just didn't take off for whatever reason. But that was my first real tour.
Right.
Aside from Joe McBride.
And then after that, was it Michelle Branch?
Yeah, I did a few other things.
Right?
Yeah, 99, 2000, something like that. Yeah.
Michelle Branch. I was at a show where he was playing with Michelle Branch because I was there to see Billy Moeller and Nate playing with The Calling.
Exactly.
Right.
And that was the first time I was aware of you because Bill said, "Oh yeah, man, John Button, he's from North Texas, he's great, man. We just jam on the bus all the time. Man. It's fucking great."
What a great tour! I didn't realize that was the bill. What a fun group of.
It was super fun. Yeah, we were out for a month or two. It was really fun. Fun group of guys. We had a great time.
No, we were on the road before that together with Peter.
That's right, with Peter Hamilton. Was that before Michelle Branch?
Yeah, 99.
Right.
I just remember driving a tour van the wrong way through Chicago on a one-way street, and I thought I was going to kill you. It was like, "It's short.
But there was also, wasn't there the time that we got stuck in Chicago in a snowstorm?
Absolutely.
And
yes.
We found a flight out at like
To San
2 in the
Francisco.
morning to
Yeah.
San Francisco,
Right.
and then you and I and a couple other people drove at like 6 a.m. after being up all night.
Correct.
Oh boy.
Drove from San Francisco to LA. Glamorous. It was a super fun
Yeah,
tour.
we laughed a lot on that tour. That morning, the drive to the morning show. Do you remember in Chicago? It's all in Chicago, but it was a Chicago morning show, and it was like we had driven into the House of Blues Hotel. We got there at 3 in the morning. We had a 6 a.m. morning show call, and the tour manager who was driving got lost on the way to the TV studio, and everyone was punch drunk, and the artist is saying, "Oh, maybe that woman walking her dogs is the TV producer." And the tour manager is really angry. He's like, "Oh, maybe that donut shop is the studio. We'll just do it." He got so, and we were all cracking, and Greg was wearing like, we were all kind of dressed for TV, and Greg was wearing like dungarees with paint on them, and the artist was not.
How do you remember these details?
Because that really made me laugh. That morning was one of those road mornings where you just. Everyone needs sleep, no one has sleep, and everything's funny.
That was
And
so
nothing's
fun.
working. And the first question, so he's married to Bob Dylan's daughter, the artist we were with. And on the do not ask list of the questions is do not ask about Bob Dylan. And the first question, 6:30 in the morning. So what's it like to be a part of rock royalty, being married to Bob Dylan? I remember I just walked the other way, but this is, or I don't even know what he said. I don't know. I just went back to the green room like, that's not. Yeah, it was good. Wow.
Anyway, when this guy moved in next door, I just couldn't believe how good life could get, because this is a great neighborhood. I mean, yeah,
Wow.
Tons
it's a
of cool
fantastic
people.
street.
I know everybody.
But to get a bass player that lives next door, and it's not only the sharing of power tools. Like I've got a decent Hitachi chop saw that he borrows on occasion to make picture frames and whatnot, things like that. But also the instrument thing. It's like I've borrowed his B-15, he's borrowed my 65P when his has been in transit from one gig to another.
So great.
Or one time I was about ready to go on tour, and I actually do a bit of bowing stuff with Roger Daltrey. We're about to leave. I tighten up my bow, it explodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, do you have a bow I can borrow? Mike comes with 7, 8
Yeah,
bows.
yeah. Let's
Well,
try
here
this.
you go. Let's see which one.
But I'm like the frickin' bow sommelier. Well, this one doesn't quite match. Oh, yeah, it's definitely drawing more fundamental than this one.
Yeah, seriously, we sat there for like
Not knowing
45
that,
minutes.
and he's like, dude, I'm not playing it on this bass. Oh, well, all this was lost time then. We can never get back.
That's hilarious.
Or when I was subbing for Dan Lutz on Wicked, Dan was playing a Lakeland, and the deal with the subs on the show is that you have to play the instruments that the main guy is using for the sake of sound and the sound department, so that they get as similar a sound as possible. And I thought, well, that's kind of a drag, because
Totally.
Lakelands are a 35-inch scale, but then
And also, everyone's fingers, I mean, it's not like it would. There will be a change anyway.
the bass is going to sound like a bass.
Correct.
Even when I'm like, well, get into the bass sommelier vibe.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yes, the upper partials on this one.
Yeah, right.
You know what? It sounds like a bass.
Yeah.
Pick up this one. Oh, wow, that sounds like a bass too. How about that?
Yeah.
So, but playing on a 35-inch scale as opposed to a 34, the notes are in a slightly different place. So John got the, hey, don't you have? Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm not using it. So here, take it. And the fretless too.
Yeah.
And I borrowed his basses, his Lakeland 5s, fretted and fretless, so that I could be comfortable playing on a 35-inch scale. And I think I borrowed it for like a month or something.
And you played Dan's bass at the show?
And I played Dan's bass at the show.
You leave that there.
However, because I ended up buying a Lakeland 5 prior to playing on the show, prior to the show starting, because it was aligned fretless, which was easier to play in tune, and because I knew that he had a Lakeland 5 fretted bass. So I bought one. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is so jarring.
No, I'm actually fascinated.
Well, the .047 resistor in the tone, to be more like the
Those are active basses, are they not?
They're active
So that would
basses.
make a difference, obviously.
Yeah, they're active
That would-
basses.
Yeah.
But anyway, Dan ended up, because Dan brought over the instruments he was playing, and his fretless was like something he got for like $200. And it was something that he got for about $200. So I said, why don't you? Yes, and I met Dan in '94 at Disney in
Oh, yeah.
Florida, he was playing in the show band for the college program, and I was playing in the big band with Dan West on keyboard.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
Northridge guy, right?
Shayla Gonzalez.
Oh yeah, all Northridge people.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty cool. It was
I
a very
left
good
out-
band.
I left out Dan when we were talking about the guys I was at North Texas with.
Right.
He was there at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so I said, "Why don't you play on this?" And he said, "Oh yeah, that's a lot better." And then there were notes on the show that require an extension on the bass, and he doesn't have an extension on his bass. He's got a very fine bass, but no extension. So I said, "Well, here I've got one with it." Yeah. So I worked it out so that I got to play two-thirds of the axes on the show were mine.
That's hilarious.
Which just lived in the pit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the unfortunate thing is other things lived in the pit as well, like cockroaches. So
Come on.
like the guy's conducting and it across the top of the stand. One of them was in the rafters and fell into Michelle's oboe bag. I mean, it was such a scene they had to bomb the place like twice.
At least
But
they
I
didn't
was
have termites.
they didn't have termites, but I was just worried that I'd start playing the thing and you hear from inside the instrument that didn't happen.
No.
So that's all.
Sure,
no
when you're
harm,
in
no
a
foul.
pit down in Hollywood,
Yeah,
I'm sure there are a lot of things down there.
little critters. Yeah, there's a critter contingent.
Yeah.
Getting into into film score, like playing on scores, and what's the path for somebody?
Okay. Well, first of all, you got to be in a place where film scores are being recorded. Second of all, you have to have a certain idea of tone production and the way that it differs in the studio versus live, which is a big thing. A lot of it is done with bow speed rather than pressure. You kind of have to rethink your total sound concept to be a little bit smaller, a little bit more self-contained, because you don't have a giant hall that's factoring into your sound. So how do you prepare for that? You practice with a microphone. You listen to the artifacts that happen. That happen with any live bass player in any orchestra. There's always going to be a certain amount of clunch in the sound that just it's the nature of things. It's like, when you have a homemade apple pie and you bite into a seed, it's like that's how you know you're eating a homemade apple pie. Yeah, there's the same amount of artifact that happens sonically playing the bass. So there's going to be a bunch of crunches and squeaks and pops and things like that a microphone doesn't dig, and nor do the people behind the microphones that are generally hiring you or have some control over whether or not you get hired. So practicing with a microphone and headphones to develop a real sensitivity to any extraneous noise, that's something that I think is helpful. Definitely, getting into a town and playing for the guys that are doing the work is helpful, and they're going to have a thing or two to say about what I just talked about in terms of, it sounds good, but you need to rethink how you're developing your tone with a bow, and then a certain awareness of the microphones themselves. I've been in so many situations over the years where someone just hasn't checked the thing. I don't blame anyone for this, but they didn't check to see whether or not the low cut filter and the 10 dB pad were on. And then they look at me like, you have such a small sound. What's wrong with you? You suck. Wait 1 minute. Or another time when, a very wonderful engineer named Dennis Sands, who works for Alan Silvestri, he works for all sorts of guys, and is just a wonderful cat. Always, hugs and kisses and smiles with him. He just got his, I want to say it was an M49 back from the shop, and they installed the capsule backwards.
Oh.
So I'm playing, I'm in the booth at Sony, and I'm playing. It sounds out of phase, I don't know what's going on. Didn't understand. So I know Dennis, I trust Dennis, he always gets a great bass sound. And, so I go in front of it, and then on the back capsule, and it was like, I figured it out.
Houston.
Yeah, Houston, we have a problem.
Wow.
So things like that, knowing where your bass likes to see a microphone, or likes to, rather, reversing that, knowing where the microphone likes to hear your instrument. I've got several instruments, they all have slightly different places where the microphone likes to be on them. And then what kind of sound are you going for? In the same way that you got to know styles. You got to know the difference between what Ray Brown is going to sound like, or Paul Chambers, or Scott LaFaro, or Ron Carter, or Dave Holland, and where that's going to influence where you put the microphone, as well as how you play. Mm-hmm. Are you dressing the string this way? Are you dressing it this way? Are you coming off the thing? If it's a more old school sort of a thing where it's more of a lateral stroke rather than like a horizontal stroke.
Seems like at the end of the day, to be a studio musician, especially in that thing, I'm sure this applies to you too, John. It's like thinking like a list, reflexively almost.
Yeah.
And it's so intrinsic for us to think like players.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel for me to produce this sound? And that's not
right.
actually the most. You have to spend the first however many years of your life figuring that out and having that be internal. And now, because I know from the orchestra, everyone notices how much you listen and how aware you are of not just your part, but also the other parts and how it relates.
Yeah.
And that seems like something that is important.
Yeah.
In your experience.
Well, yeah, but it also gets me into trouble. No, it does.
If you're at the bottom at the end, and sometimes it's just sometimes you're in a section, but sometimes it's just you. And if what you're providing makes no sense, it's on you.
Well, yeah, that is true,
right?
That is true. I mean, but I do some producing as well, and I like being in that position because you're basically just paid to react. Mm-hmm. And as someone that's a bit ADD and a bit situational Tourette's. Hey, B flat. Yes, it helps to be in a situation some of the time where you can actually say, "Hey, that is a B flat there," at the second eighth note of bar 32. And, oh, you're right, Mike. I said, well, yeah, you didn't hear that,
right?
But that's another, In the orchestra, though, and being the bass player, especially if I'm sitting in the section, it's not my place. It's not my job. And
so you pick your
You gotta pick your spots.
Yeah.
And sometimes if something is obviously wrong, we just fix it.
Right.
Or I ask the orchestrator. This is like
that's what I did the other day. There was an A that didn't belong.
Yes,
and I thought,
exactly.
and people are yelling out, but new guy's not going to yell out
New
today.
guy.
I'm going to walk right into the orchestrator and I say, this A sounds wrong, and I only say that because Randy's chords are hip, but this isn't it, and I hear it in 3 other places in the orchestra. So I'm telling you, and then you're a hero versus the deck.
Right, exactly. But that kind of backside, channeling of, backside, back cash processing of fixing the mistakes.
Everyone wins.
Yeah. And that's a huge tool for me. I've got some of the orchestrators get a little bit bugged by it.
But it's all the tone.
Most of them don't.
Yeah, you're doing them a favor.
Right, exactly.
Better than the composer doesn't hear, or they don't hear it in the mix when they're going to the dub stage, and they
Right. Why didn't anyone say anything?
Yeah.
That's the other side of that.
And all of that being said, and that's not even talking about having great sight reading skills. Right?
True.
Yeah, that's pretty imperative to
It is.
play on movies.
And amazing that you can't sight read. And you've gotten this far.
I don't read music at all. I've just got really good ears. I just fake it for the first part. Just kind of hear it going like,
listen around.
Oh yeah. Yes. No, reading is an important part. It's an important part of everyone's thing. I don't consider myself a great reader though, and I don't think that just playing in the studios helps to keep you a great reader, because a lot of the time, especially with film and TV stuff, where it's music with a secondary purpose, it's not always going to be the most challenging stuff to read. So as a result, it's not like you're reading stuff that's really pushing you or exercising those muscles. People often think, well, you're reading every day. Yeah, but when you read like Jack and the Beanstalk every day, you learn how to read Jack and the Beanstalk. You're not reading Dostoevsky. So there is that aspect of things. So you read other things. George Deering talked about getting clarinet books because most of them, sat kind of in the middle of the register, and it didn't matter what key he was playing them in. So when he was first coming into town, George is a marvelous guitar player, plays everything, plays everywhere, plays with everyone.
And one of the few really good sight reading guitar players, am I right?
He's monstrous. There are others that are great too. Andrew Sinowick is quite good. Yeah. But George just doesn't miss.
Right.
He just never misses. And he said, "Oh yeah, you should."
I was going to do the impression, but I'll go ahead and do it.
That's fantastic. Nobody's doing this. So he just told me, early on, I picked up stacks and stacks of clarinet music and would just blow through that and read through that. And that's how he got his reading up to par. Although there's new programs and apps and things like this, I think this is a really good time for people that are trying to learn how to read, because there's a lot more tools that are, because the old, well, you just have to read. That's how you learn how to read. But if you can't read, that's unhelpful.
Right.
And, these days, there's all sorts of different programs that, with movable pages of stuff and moving notes and that kind of thing, kind of follow the bouncing ball type stuff. But I think that's really helpful for someone that's, trying to get their reading game together.
Skipping over a lot of amazing gigs that you've had, but getting to play with The Who, and I know that came through Roger Daltrey, right? How do you prepare for such an iconic gig like that, where you know that everybody's going to be listening and judging every note?
Right. Well, like you say, I played with Roger Daltrey for about 8 years before I got the call to do The Who. And Roger does a lot of Who material. So having those 8 years to kind of get that stuff together was definitely helpful. Playing Who stuff, John Entwistle is such a unique player, and the way he plays, it was really outside my wheelhouse. I feel like the way I see myself is this like meat and potatoes pocket player, And then it's like, hey, you want to play with Roger Daltrey? Well, yeah, okay. And then you're, So I had to work on it. I don't think there's any magic answer. It's like sit down and, one thing I've always done a lot, which you kind of talked about, is I record myself. And I actually did that a lot when I was preparing to audition for Sheryl Crow. I would high pass her song, roll the low end off, record myself along with it, listen back, not quite right. Go back, redo it, So
Yeah.
Same thing, just, record yourself along with it and listen back and, oh my God, I'm so on top of the beat.
What would you listen for when you would record? What sounded off to you when you didn't like it?
Mostly it's pocket, like 2 on top, 2 laid back.
Right.
But you also notice other things, length of notes, sound, all that stuff. But a lot of it for me is just getting the feel, the pocket to sound in the right place. Does it need to be a little laid back? Does it need to be kind of on top? All that. And that's tough stuff to figure out, especially I find without listening back to it. And I find as you record yourself more, you start to be able to witness it at the time. You start to be able to understand how to know where it is. And that sort of surprise that you have of listening back to it gets less and less surprising as you do it more. It's like when you hear your voice recorded for the first time, you're like, oh my God,
I sound like an asshole.
Every time.
and now I just know
sound like an asshole.
now I just know I sound like an asshole. I'm not surprised when I hear it.
So when you first got on stage with the band, with Pete,
With the Who?
or not even stage, first rehearsal, did the dynamic change with, you've played Who songs with no Pete, now...
It's so different with Pete. It's crazy how much difference. It's a different drummer between Pete and Roger. So Zach Starkey plays with the Who. Scott DeBowers plays with Roger Daltrey. Both amazing drummers. Different guys, different feel, different people, different human beings. And then Pete is just such a force, man. And he was always, I think historically, he was kind of the timekeeper of the band. Because certainly Moon wasn't keeping...
Right.
God bless him. He wasn't... Yeah, John had an amazing time. He was super solid. But, Moon's all over the place. Moon's tempo was like... So I think Pete had a sense of like, I kind of got to hold the band together. And so he has, 50 years of laying it down. And his feel is strong. And it's amazing.
Are you ever playing to, like on the stuff with the Lowry loops and stuff, are you playing to those?
Yeah. And they're not in tempo too, which is wacky.
Wow.
You start to learn where they weave and bob.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But yeah, playing with Pete, it's like I said, he's such a force, and he's so intense. Like he plays like his life depends on it every night, man. It's incredible. And he's 74, like 75, and he's like a teenager up there. Man, it's amazing.
It's so cool.
It's incredible.
What was the feeling the first time you were on stage with the band? Where was it?
Oh man! So when I started with them, I think we did maybe 6 days of rehearsal, short days. We'd started. We'd get there at noon, and Pete would roll in at 2 or 3, have a tea. We'd play for a couple hours. Yeah, I'm ready for dinner. That's it. Rehearsal's over. Get 2 or 3 hours, it seems. So we did about 6 days of that. And then time for the first show, Royal Albert Hall.
Sure.
Filming for a DVD.
No pressure.
No big deal.
Wow.
So yeah, playing Tommy. So yeah, I remember.
Way to get thrown in.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember the hour before going on. That's I don't get super nervous generally, but I remember the hour before we went on. I was a bit nervous. But I also knew once I got on stage and got my bass on, that's like my comfort zone, man.
Mm-hmm. Your shield.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I knew once I had my bass and we started playing, I'd be fine.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely, that was a uncomfortable hour.
Yeah.
Leading up to that.
I get that.
How great.
What advice would you give to somebody that wanted to follow your path?
Recording yourself. I mean, especially now, I'm sort of jealous of the younger musicians that now you have just like a studio in your laptop. I mean, I remember back in my day, I had like a boom box that I could like plug a CD player into the left channel and my bass into the right channel and put it on.
Good for you, though.
Like it had a mono mode so it would blend the two together, and I was like cobbling together. Anyway, record yourself.
Yeah.
You have GarageBand in every laptop.
So
It's
it's so easy with GarageBand too.
yeah. And that's really illuminating. To be a touring musician, like one of the most important things is just be mellow and like easy to get along with, because it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like being a good player is sort of kind of a given. And there are great players that are just kind of hard to get along with. And it's like if you're out on the road day in and day out for months at a time.
Nobody wants that.
No.
It's just, there's no time for that. There are too many great players that are cool that the people that aren't just see you later. They don't get, and if people are looking for a musician for a tour, it's like, oh hey, can you recommend somebody? Are they cool?
Right.
Always. Oh, I heard on that other tour there were problems. So yeah, let's not get that guy. And that news spreads fast.
Right.
So yeah, like. I don't know how you work on being easy
cool.
to get along with.
But you can work on it.
I suppose.
You can work in the same way that I've had to work on keeping my mouth shut and being mellow in the studio over the years, and have worked on it and have gotten better at it. Because there have been several times over the course of my career where it's gotten dicey for me. Like, you do that again, you're never coming back, kind of dicey. Or the phone call at home from Sandy to Crescent.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah, like I've heard some things and they're troubling to me.
Yeah.
How could you let this happen? You better not let it happen again.
Yeah.
And then, things like, going from being a smoker to a non-smoker, and that period of time where I got even more mouth. And things just got more out of hand, and the situation of Tourette's was like, hanging. But you work on it. You can work on it.
Yeah.
You can work on being mellower. You can work on keeping your mouth shut. When you can work on just opening your word, and some of this just comes with the time and experience of doing the gig.
Right.
And I think I've got that to be thankful for, rather than saying, well, I worked on this really hard.
Right.
Because it's not the case. I think it's just you mellow out over time, and you recognize you're in this, because we all do a lot of different things. And I think for me, one of the things that's been important to recognize is the job at hand is the job I'm doing, and do that as best you can.
Yeah, I talk
Yeah.
about putting on the blinders.
Right.
I'm just playing bass.
Right.
I'm not going to worry about, producing and.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I was showing up with an electric bass that day, I'm the electric bass player. I went through a whole period of my life where I played the shell game. If I could show up on electric bass, well, I'm really an upright player. You show up on an upright gig, well, I'm really something else. I'm really a classical player.
Right.
Show up on a classical, well, I'm really a jazz man. Kind of like, nothing to see here. Keep
I realized also we're on a gig. We have our place in the on the totem pole or whatever where we are in our career.
Yeah.
And a lot of people tend to forget. Not only are there other people now, but there's always somebody coming in that's
True.
ready for the slot, and
Absolutely.
that's nothing to fear. It's just a deal.
It's the reality.
So and if they don't work on, they may have a great. But anyway, there's always. You never get too comfortable and always learn. I think we learn, we're always learning about how to adapt and maybe also be aware of what we're not doing great. What we could do better.
Sure.
Also, just observing other people and how they act and how that works out for them, and sort of just paying attention to that. What my thought process is when somebody says, "Hey, can you recommend somebody?" And I sort of pay attention to my thought process of how do I choose somebody to recommend? In terms of if somebody else is going to recommend me, how are they thinking about recommending me, and what things do I think about when I'm thinking about recommending somebody?
Yeah.
Being observant.
Will you shake hands as neighbors for the camera?
Do we have to?
Oh, my neighbor!
Thank you, neighbor.
God damn it!
Quit your belly aching.
Terrible!
Come
It's
on.
terrible! What are you playing, tuba?
That's the worst.
It's the worst! Shut up! It's the worst!
Dig my groove, baby.
Oh, hello, Sage of Sound Advice. Another episode's come and gone, and we hope you enjoyed all of it and you paid attention because there will be a test. Lady C, there won't be a test. We hope you enjoyed it and stick around. Many more episodes to come with many exciting guests. We hope you love Sage and Sound Advice as much as we do. Okay, back to the doobies.